So, with command points changing in the new chapter approved, what about Necron Warlord Traits? Are they worth spending a CP on? And which ones are the best? It's coming right up.
Necrons!
Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Right, today we are looking at Necron Warlord Traits. We now have to pay a CP to take our first Warlord trait. Is it worth it? And if so, which ones to take? If you want to find out more about these changes in the chapter approved War Zone Nephilim book, then check out the first video in this little mini series. For now though, we're going to look at Warlord Traits, and I'm going to break them down into 3 segments. We're going to have the best ones, we're going to have the situational ones, and we're going to have the very situational ones. So let's get on and have a look at our Warlord Traits. Okay, I'm going to go through them in order as they are in the book, and the first one is Enduring Will. No mortal weaponry will break this Warlord's iron resolve. Each time an attack is allocated to this Warlord, subtract 1 from the damage characteristics of that attack to a minimum of 1. So -1 to damage. Now our characters don't have a huge amount of wounds. This could help. However, I don't tend to get my characters into close combat very often unless I've built a close combat character, which obviously you can do, but on the whole our characters are there to buff other units. So this is usable. It's situational whether it's actually going to benefit you in the game. So I'm going to put it in category 2. Next is Eternal Madness. This Warlord's sanity suffered during the Great Sleep, and now he is driven by a wrathful Sill. Each time this Warlord makes a melee attack, you can re-roll the wound roll. So again, it's a close combat orientated one. We don't have too many close combat orientated characters. Maybe a Command Barge or a Skorpek Lord, but generally our characters aren't melee orientated. If you were making one melee orientated, this could work. Re-rolling the wounds, not bad. However, it's also situational, so it's going to be in category 2. Next up, it's Immortal Pride. This Warlord refuses to allow his warriors a single step backwards, even in the face of intense psychic onslaught. Each time this Warlord would lose a wound as a result of a mortal wound, roll 1d6. On a 5+, that wound is not lost. This Warlord has the following ability: Immortal Pride, Aura. While a friendly Dynasty core unit is within 6 inches of this model, each time a combat attrition test is taken for that unit, ignore any or all modifiers. So I don't think we can argue with a save against mortal wounds, because let's face it, there's a lot of mortal wounds around. And the second ability is very, very useful if you've got those type of units which are going to benefit from them, which is mainly going to be big units of things like warriors or maybe flayed ones. If you have units like those that are going to have to take morale checks because they are bigger units, then this is very good. And even if you don't have those units, well, even the 5+ mortal save wound is worth having. So for me, Immortal Pride is going to be in category 1. It certainly is one of the standout Warlord traits. Next, it's Thrall of the Silent King. This Warlord pursues the agenda of the Silent King and so commands his legions with unparalleled authority. Add 3 inches to the range of this Warlord's aura abilities to a maximum of 9. In addition, when this Warlord uses its My Will Be Done, the Lord's Will or Adaptive Strategy abilities, you can select 1 friendly Dynasty core unit within 12 inches of this Warlord instead of 9. So basically extending your range of your aura abilities and your My Will Be Done. Incredibly useful, especially now that we have so many core units. We've got extra reasons to have a longer ranged My Will Be Done. I like using this as a Warlord trait personally, and it definitely is going to be one of the top ones. So in category 1, in she goes. Next up, Implacable Conqueror, which is an aura ability. This warlord strides at the head of his legions. While the friendly dynasty core unit is within 6 inches of this warlord, you can re-roll charge rolls made for that unit. Well, at the moment, whilst our characters aren't necessarily the best at close combat, we do have some great close combat units, especially in the Novok dynasty. We're talking Wraiths, Scorpec Destroyers, Flayed Ones. Very good, and a re-roll of a charge roll for that unit is incredibly useful. This is definitely a warlord trait worth having, and is definitely in the top category. Okay, so next it's Honourable Combatant. This warlord is a strict adherent to the ancient codes. In the fight phase, each time this warlord is selected to fight, it can engage in honourable combat. If it does, select one enemy character unit, and to the end of the phase, add 2 to the attacks characteristic of this warlord. But it... What the hell has happened to the rest of the sentence? Yes, I did manually type out this myself. Let me check the codex. But it can only make attacks that targets that enemy character unit. So +2 attacks when you're against a character unit. Now, as I said, we're not that great in close combat, so 2 extra attacks sounds really good. However, it is very situational because it has to be against a character. If it was just +2 attacks, it would be a lot better. For me, it's not that great. I don't play it, so it's going to be in category 3. Right, now we're going to move on to the Dynasty dedicated warlord traits, and the first one is the Mefrit Dynasty, Merciless Tyrant. Warlords of the Mefrit Dynasty will suffer no threats to their rule, annihilating any who dare to oppose them. Add 1 to the strength and attacks characteristic of the warlord. So, +1 to strength, +1 to attack. I'm actually liking this. If I was in the Mefrit Dynasty, I would certainly consider this one, even though, again, I don't like to get into close combat too much, and, well, the Mefrit Dynasty is all about shooting. Even so, it's worth considering. It is situational, so it is going to be in the second category. Okay, so next up, it's the Nephrek Dynasty, the Skin of Living Gold. Those who gaze upon this Nephrek warlord are blinded by his radiant glory. Each time an attack is made against this warlord, subtract 1 from that attack's hit roll. So -1 to hit if you're targeted. It is pretty useful. However, hopefully you will be protecting your characters with the rest of your army, with the Lookout Sir rule, etc. And hopefully you won't be getting into close combat that much. And if you are, will you want -1 to hit? Well, potentially. But again, it's situational. If you're playing the Nephrek Dynasty, I'd love to know, are you using this warlord trait? But for me, I think it is situational. So again, it's going to be in category 2. Right, next, it's the Nihilic. Yes, them. Yes, they're just a dynasty that you can't pronounce, basically. Precognitive Strike. The Nihilic warlord has foreseen his moment of glorious victory, or rather, the Yithsir has done so. At the start of your fight phase, if this warlord is within engagement range of any enemy units, it can fight first. That's phase. So it can fight first. That's pretty useful, being able to fight, do the blows, the strikes first. Very nice, and we know that other armies, of course, have this in abundance, it seems. But pretty nice. If you're playing Nihilic, this could be an option. And I'm going to put it in that number 2 category again, because I think it is situational, and it's only going to really benefit you, of course, if you are in close combat. So now we come on to the dedicated Novok warlord trait, Blood-Fueled Fury. Warlords of the Novok dynasties are awakened and empowered by the gushing blood of the foe. Each time this warlord makes a melee attack, an unmodified wound roll of a 6 inflicts 1 mortal wound on the target in addition to any normal damage. Well, doing mortal wounds, you have to say, is obviously very useful. However, it's only on a roll of a 6, and yeah, we don't have that many attacks anyway, so I'm not sure this is the most amazing Warlord trait. I suppose if you are gearing up a Novok character to try and go out and kill a load of stuff, then this might help. However, is it the best one? Probably not. I think it is a game going to go into category 2. Right, Sotek, the hyperlogical strategist. I used to play this all the time when Sotek were really good. However, let's have a look at it. Sotek warlords can apply a filter of infallible logic to develop unbeatable strategies. Whilst this warlord is on the battlefield, each time you spend a command point to use a stratagem, you can roll 1d6 on a 5+, that command point is refunded. Now potentially this has gone up in the world quite a bit because of course we have less command points, so this could be very valuable. At least we have less command points at the beginning of the game. So this could be very valuable. Every time you spend a command point you potentially could get it back on a 5+. If I was playing Sotek, then I would be playing this Warlord trait. So I'm going to put it in category 1. For me, it's a must if you're in that dynasty. Okay, so next it's the Zerican dynasty, the Triarch's will. Certain in the knowledge that they act as arbiters of the final Triarch, this Zerican warlord exercises overwhelming strategic authority. If your warlord has this warlord trait, then when assigning command protocols for the battle, you can select 4 command protocols instead of 5, and then one of those command protocols can be assigned to 2 battle rounds instead of 1. Now we know command protocols definitely need some work in terms of their rules. They're very finicky, there's a lot of hoops to get them out. However, this is really good, being able to use 2 of the same command protocols for 2 turns, especially if you're taking a specific dynasty one. So for example, if you're in the Novok dynasty, you take the Novok protocol and you use it 2 turns in a row. There's no doubt this is going to be in the number 1 position. And of course, if you're playing the Silence King, then this is definitely going to be the one to have. And of course, with the King, you can also manipulate the order of the command protocols as well. So really useful. So those are my top warlord traits. Of course, 2 of them are locked into certain dynasties. However, they're all pretty usable, and I would spend a command point to use those particular ones. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments box below. And if you enjoyed this video, here is the playlist that I made on the best Necron units in the Codex. And here is a playlist where you can see the rest of these videos in this little mini series.